Hello everybody, welcome to Cyclops Studios. My name is Mikhail Trench. I'd like to give everyone a huge welcome to my first ever Q&A video. Now I'm making this video particularly because I recently this year reached 100 subscribers. Now it's grown a little bit since back in April, which is when I hit that milestone. And I'm just really happy about it and I want to celebrate somehow. Now before I had planned on making another video around this time that had to do sort of with the stop motion film industry, there's a little more specifics onto that. I decided to cancel that, well not really cancel it, but more of kind of rework it because I've been having some issues with it. I kind of feel like I'm not really doing what I really want with it, and it kind of is coming off as something I didn't want it to. So I'm sort of reworking this video right now, but I want to get something out there so I could just say thank you to you guys and do something a little special. So recently I put out a Q&A on all my social media platforms where you guys could ask me basically any question you had about me or my work or anything about stop motion you guys were interested in. So I've got a couple questions here, so without further ado, let's go ahead and answer them. Now this one actually is from a Q&A little thing I did a long time ago, last year around November. I thought this was a good one to start with. So this one is coming from Noam_Kleinman, and he asked, "You seem really passionate about claymation. What first inspired you to start it, and how did you begin?" Well, that's an interesting question. So I really got started doing stop motion animation, things like that, film in general, in about 2011. I was in about 7th grade at that time. I loved movies, I loved animated movies. Even before I think I knew what stop motion was, I was always intrigued by it. Things like King Kong, Wallace and Gromit, things like that had always pulled me in, even if I didn't know exactly how it was made or how difficult it was to make those kind of films. And yeah, like I said, 7th grade, I met a friend who kind of showed me this kind of technology and how I could use it. My cat's over here. Hey, lady. Yes, I'm making this video and gotta get on everything. Yeah, so he showed me how to use this kind of technology and I got really into it, and it kind of rolled on from there. Before it was just something like a little hobby. I just kind of did it in my free time, and now I kind of want to do it as a profession. So that basically answers it, hopefully. The next question is coming from SpookyBones224, asking, "What techniques do you use for your stop motion projects?" That's another good question. Right now, my stop motion techniques are pretty simple. I mostly use my phone to film most of my projects. For certain films I've made in the past, such as King Kong vs. Prometheus and The Tree That Refused to Fall, I actually used a stop motion program on my computer, a very in the middle kind of program called Stop Motion Explosion, which was kind of interesting to use. It was like a webcam I would attach to my computer and I could just like animate from there, which was an interesting experience, even though it didn't really give me the highest quality, but it was still a nice thing to use. I have used Dragon Frame at one point. Right now I'm a student at SCAD, which if you don't know is Savannah College of Art and Design. I go to the Atlanta campus and I'm an animation major there. There's a stop motion club at the school actually, and one point last year in the fall we were making this little stop motion paper cutout thing actually. At that point I actually used Dragon Frame, which was pretty cool. I got into it pretty quickly, but again, not that I'm not super advanced with it. I used the let me see what the app's called again. Stop Motion Studio app. It's a pretty nice app. I definitely recommend it for people, especially getting into stop motion, but even those who are kind of really good at it and just kind of want something to maybe do animation tests with or play around with here and there. It's always it's definitely a good one to go with. And yeah, I make my models here out of clay. This is 2 of them. This is the one from the tree that refused to fall, and over here, I don't know if you can see, this is Snow Hunter from the Snow Hunter Chronicles series I'm working on at the moment. And of course I have a whole shelf of other models off to the side here from my previous works. But yeah, they're all made out of Sculpey clay and things like that. and I animate them at about 12 to 15 frames per second at this moment. It's basically like just kind of the numbers per second, or number of frames that goes into 1 second of film, basically. Whereas most bigger stop motion studios and films use 24, which I'm trying to get more used to. I've done like some little tests and things like that here and there where I've been using 24 frames per second, and it's definitely a lot more time consuming, but your actual final product turns out to look a lot nicer, so it's definitely nice. And so this is a really broad question, so sorry if I'm all over the place with this. I started using lip syncing with Kong vs. Prometheus. In the past, when I did lip syncing on that film and The Tree That Refused to Fall, I used clay mouthpieces, replacement mouths, so like it would be different mouthpieces for what they were saying, but it was made out of clay. But I realized that was getting really messy. I actually have this little, this used to be like a little can container thing that held DVDs in it, but now I use it for like mouthpieces. So now they're like cut out pieces of paper. These are a little worn out, but as you can see, kind of different little expressions I use. And I've been using this since about when I started on doing the Snow Hunter Chronicles series, because I knew for that series I was going to have to use a lot of lip syncing and talking, obviously, and the clay mouths just weren't going to cut it. They were way too messy and way too hard to control. That's just a little bit about, you know, how I do, kind of techniques I use for my films. So our next question is this one's coming from Twitter this time instead of Instagram, from Fanboy D King Kong, Day King Kong. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. His question is, How do you get the idea of The Tree That Refused to Fall? And he followed that question with, you canceled Snow Hunter. I got the idea for The Tree That Refused to Fall around the summer of 2015, which was a little less than a year before the film would eventually come out. And I had some different ideas and ambitions with it. Originally I kind of wanted it to be sort of more comedic based and stuff like that. Depending on how you look at it, I mean, it could still be kind of funny. I've had some people who have watched it who thought it was kind of funny, and you know, I mean, if you want to interpret it that way, I'm completely fine with it. But there's nothing particularly I'd say that really like drove the idea of this film into my head. It was sort of more of one that I kind of did because I really love nature and I really do appreciate it. It's one of the things that I definitely think inspires me in my work, and things I'm very passionate about always almost come back to nature. And this was a film that I think really kind of encompassed that for me, and I really enjoyed doing it. And then the next question answering that you asked me was, did I cancel Snow Hunter? No, I did not cancel Snow Hunter. In case you guys don't know, I made a, almost around this time last year, around September, I released a web series, a clay animation web series called the Snow Hunter Chronicles. I made 2 episodes of it, and I've been kind of saying I'm going to release a 3rd episode, but it's just kind of been, life has been crazy for me. Like I said before, I am a student at SCAD, and that school is mad time consuming. It takes up a lot of time to work at that school and do the projects and things like that if you have any chance of passing. And I've had other things I've been doing, jobs, because my original idea was I was going to release the 3rd episode sometime around, I'd say, March or April of this year, and that obviously didn't happen. Spring break, I was just really kind of drained from school, and I wanted to really take some time off and relax. I kept saying I was going to go off and do this episode, but I just never ended up doing it, obviously. Then I said I was going to try releasing it during the summer, but I also had another job that I did during the summer that took up a lot of time, to the point I wasn't even home, basically, so I had no access to my set or to any of my models or anything like that, or any time to animate, let alone. But I am happy to announce now I have some time off in between my job, which I just finished, and going back to school in September, and I am currently back in production working on the 3rd episode of Snow Hunters. So that should hopefully come out sometime around early September. I'm going to have some more details coming out soon about it. To answer your question shortly, no, Snow Hunter is not canceled. It's still going on. I just had some halts in the road, but it's still continuing, so don't worry about that. Alright, and the last question here I've got is another one from Instagram. And this one's a bit This one's a bit long, which is why I left it towards the end. So this one is coming from Flying on Suns, and she asked 3 questions actually. She asked, how long does one project usually take from conception to posting the footage? Also, about how many frames goes into just 1 minute of video, and what's your favorite part about stop motion, and why is your preferred medium of art? Okay, so answering your first question there, how long does it take to usually take from conception to posting the footage? Honestly, that really depends. It really depends kind of what kind of film it is. For example, something like King Kong vs. Prometheus, that film took me quite a few, if you're talking about like from concept all the way to the very end, because I kind of thought of the film around, I want to say freshman year or sophomore year of high school. Yeah, it was kind of an idea I'd been making in my head, and sophomore year I know I began drawing out storyboards and writing stuff for it. Around my summer of senior year actually is when I started, or the summer before I became a senior in high school was actually when I started production. It started around July, actual filming and things like that, and I finished it and about November of that same year. So it was about 4 or 5 months of actual filming and animating and things like that, and I want to say 3 or 4 years of actually planning it out. And then there are things like my most recent short film, in case you haven't seen it, called Terrifying Lizards. That film took me 2 days to actually make, from kind of conception to filming it. Sometimes, again, it just depends on what you're really aiming for. If you really want to go for something that's obviously a very big passion project, it's going to take longer because you want to put more care in the way you're crafting it and the details that go into it and its story. But then you have times you just want to experiment, go a little crazy and things like that. And so I kind of just go off the bat and animate. Sometimes I won't make storyboards, I won't make a script, I'll just go and animate and I'll just let myself loose. And at this point in my life, I think that's a good thing to do. I can experiment, I have fun with it, and I see what works for me. So your second question, about how many frames go into just 1 minute of video. Okay, I know I mentioned earlier that I do my whole stop motion thing at about 12 frames per second right now. 720 frames go into 1 minute of film for me. And again, that's just for me. I'm only doing this at 12 frames per second. There are, again, stop motion people who are doing this at 24, and that's like way more. Again, for me, since I average about 12 frames right now, it's about 720. And the last question that Flying on Suns has asked me today is, what's your favorite part about stop motion, and why is it your preferred medium of art? Which I guess is a good one to kind of close us off on. You know what? Your answer's as good as mine, I guess. I think stop motion to me is just a very special kind of art form. There are obviously very few people who do it, especially these days in the world of animation. Even going to SCAD and things like that, which is a huge art school in case you don't know. It's really well known worldwide, and its animation program is also really well known. There are surprisingly few amount of people even there who want to pursue stop motion. It's very hard to find these kind of people. So for one, I guess it makes me sort of feel special. That can only go so far, because I can say I want to feel special, but like when I actually am there doing it, like I don't want to be like, oh, I hate this. But no, stop motion just has a really great quality to it. It's something about the feeling of it being done by hand, and the idea that so many people put so much time into crafting this, putting their personal touch into it, not just making it move, but bringing personality to it, bringing these characters we love, and bringing these moments we never forget to nothing but little things made out of clay or out of rubber or whatever. To me, it's very magical. I think that's sort of just the whole idea of movies and cinema and things like that. It's just to create things that stick in your head. And I think stop motion has a quality to it that I think other animation just doesn't. Even things way back like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Rankin Bass stuff, Harryhausen films, whatever, they stick with you. They really do. Like, and we remember these films and remember these moments so much because I can't put it in words. It's just something that we all just look at and we're just like, that's really spectacular. And I guess I really want to kind of capture that in my work at some point in my life. I know I'm not exactly there yet, but I really want to go ahead and pursue that, and I really want to say thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for always, coming back and watching my stuff, no matter how good or bad it is, and always being there, always giving me thumbs up, always checking out my stuff, and always just, supporting stop motion. Without you people, there is no stop motion, not just for me or for other people on the internet, but just in general. It's sad, stop motion films really are so underappreciated as an art form, and they're not given the kind of attention they need. And I want to give stop motion that voice. I want to do my best to at least add to it. So yeah, guys, this is going to wrap us up for today. Thank you again, everybody who submitted questions. Really appreciate it. I had a good time reading them and answering them. And maybe I can do one of these kind of things again. If anybody has any questions you want me to answer or are curious about, you can definitely put them in the comments below, and maybe I can do another one of these. But yeah, for now, just subscribe to Cyclops Studios so you can keep up to date with all the projects I'm doing, and be sure to follow me on all my social media handles. The links for them are down below in the description, along with my website, where you guys can keep up with updates and whatnot. So thank you guys again so much for 100 subs. It means so much for me. It's such a little milestone, but it goes a long way in really supporting my work, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done and have been through with me all this time. So thank you guys so much, and until then, I'll see you guys around. Bye. Mind, please don't jump where the camera is. Very unfortunate for me. Stay where you are, please. Alright, can you move? Thank you. Okay.